Hey guys, Superhorrorbro Mike here, and in today's video we take a look at the latest Bendy book, the Crack Up Comics collection, but more specifically, a new character introduced by this book called Nathan Arch. This name may sound familiar to avid fans of the Bendy-verse, and that's because he is referenced by none other than Joey himself in this audio log from spin-off game Boris and the Dark Survival.
It's been quite a struggle to put this into words, Nathan. After so many years, you know I'd never ask unless it was dire.
As you can tell from that clip, Nathan Arch was an investor who helped bankroll Joey Drew Studios and its various projects over the years, especially when times became tough, as evident in the recording we just heard. The introduction to this book, written by Nathan Arch himself, tells us quite a bit about him and his relationship to Joey Drew Studios. Nathan Arch was the head of his own filmmaking studio, Archgate Films. Little is known about this company, however we must remember that this studio is where Alice Angel's voice actress Alison Pendle ended up working after the closure of Joey Drew Studios in 1959. Nathan is a self-professed business tycoon, commenting that he invests in big business, including oil, steel, and industry. These major investments are no doubt where he made his fortune. We also learn he purchased rights to Bendy and its archive from Joey Drew himself, a man he claims to admire the ambition of, as well as being infused by Mr. Drew's endless creativity and positivity. When I bought the Bendy library from the estate of longtime friend Joey Drew, the world was a bit surprised. Why would I, a so-called business tycoon, buy the life's work of a man who made silly cartoons? To that I say, why not? I've always envied those whose occupation was in producing entertainment for the enjoyment of all mankind. Oil, steel, and industry are lucrative, but ultimately heartless. Bendy is all heart, perpetuated through decades by Joey's heartfelt creativity and endless positivity. He was impressed by Bendy's colossal sales figures when the comic book series boomed in the mid to late 1930s. But why would such a man as Nathan invest large amounts of his money into a franchise that never recovered and returned to glory after taking hits during the Second World War? Well, this is where we need to apply information we already have about Joey Drew Studios in order to explain the actions of this new character. While it is true that Nathan Arch had his own film company, he doesn't exactly strike me as the kind of person interested in the arts. He is, after all, a business tycoon, the kind of person known to be ruthless in their pursuit of fortune. I believe Nathan's film company is simply a front for a more sinister long-term plan, and this plan stems from the reason he invested in Joey Drew Studios to begin with: the ink machine and the financial possibilities such an invention held. We can gather from Nathan's address that financial hardships during the Second World War led to the beginning of Joey's downfall. Joey even started pushing the sale of war bonds to try and stay afloat, which finally explains why certain posters found around the studio contained the phrase, "buy bonds." Joey Drew Studios had never been short on ink, but when the United States joined the war, ink and paper was needed for all manner of purposes. The last handful of issues pushed for war bonds, almost as a last-ditch effort to save the series from supply shortages. The once great comic book division of Joey Drew Studios was shuttered in 1942. However, it wasn't until work began on the ink machine in collaboration with the Gent Company that Joey Drew started asking for investors to bankroll his operation. We've spoken about Joey's greater plans in previous videos. He was looking to innovate beyond simply cartoons and comics, creating a theme park called Bendyland where cartoons were literally brought to life via the ink machine. Living mascots working at the park and greeting visitors, a scientific breakthrough that would earn Joey a place beside history's greatest inventors. The problem was that this process wasn't cheap, and as we learned from both audio logs found within the game Bendy and the Ink Machine, and information included in last year's employee handbook, Joey needed a cash injection from outside sources. Nathan Arch being one of the most prominent. Joey seemed to be very friendly with Nathan and on good terms with him. In fact, a fat cat character depicted in the Bendy comics may well be modelled after Nathan Arch and other investors as an in-joke by Mr. Drew. In the audio log we listened to earlier, Joey certainly seemed to speak of Nathan affectionately, calling him a friend.
But when a man's in a spot, he should call upon his friends. Truth is, well, the studio is coming up a little short. Hit a few unexpected bumps. If you could lend us the amount I mentioned in my last letter, it would be a big help to me.
We can also tell from this clip that Joey became desperate, and based on evidence we currently have, it seems as though Nathan Arch may have taken advantage of this situation. But how? Well, Nathan no doubt knew about the ink machine and its great potential. And while he sounds friendly enough, we have to consider that, much like Joey Drew, this was simply a ruse, and beneath his jovial facade lay a manipulative and devious mastermind. A man who knew Joey Drew and his studio was destined to fail, and so granted Joey his wish for further investment on condition that he would be paid back with a larger share in his company. Now this would mean that when Joey Drew Studios closed, Nathan Arch would be granted rights to the Bendy franchise, and all work conducted on the ink machine too. Nathan paints the picture that he purchased Bendy from Joey, but it seems unlikely Mr. Drew would give up his iconic character unless he legally had to. In short, it seems Nathan Arch indeed played the role of ruthless tycoon, and invested in a business he knew would eventually fail in order to secure full rights to its contents when this happened. Also, look at the wording Nathan uses when talking about his purchase of the Bendy library. He says he purchased it from the estate of his long-term friend Joey Drew. This implies Joey has now died, and so rights of first refusal on the Bendy property went to Nathan Arch as a key investor in Joey's company. No doubt his plan all along. At this point, we should hear from Nathan once more. An epilogue at the back of a Crack-Ups comic collection tells us of his future plans. I sincerely hope these Bendy comics have delighted you as much as they have me and my staff. The deeper we dug into the treasure trove of Joey Drew Studios' archives, the more surprises we find, and we've barely scratched the surface at this point. Bendy was a media juggernaut back in the 1930s and remained popular for decades before fading from public consciousness completely. However, Bendy is not finished, far from it. I aim to keep the legacy created by my good friend Joey Drew alive and well. Bendy, Alice, Boris, and all their friends will be returning to the mainstream in a big way. We're proud and honored to be the new guardians of the franchise. We have a talented staff creating new Bendy masterpieces even as I write this. The sky's the limit. As Joey used to tell me, just keep dreamin', dreamin', dreamin'. Thank you, Joey, and here's to a great Bendy-filled future for us all. Now this is very interesting. Nathan wishes to continue Bendy for a new generation, as he speaks of pillaging the Joey Drew archives for the secrets within to reinstate the beloved cartoon creations during the 1970s. While he doesn't state as much, this surely must include work on the Ink Machine project, and much like Joey before him, Nathan Arch keeps this top secret project out of the public eye, not mentioning it once in this letter here. This story of a corrupt businessman now continuing Joey's work is the perfect narrative for a game called Bendy and the Dark Revival. The closing paragraph is literally setting up the new game. The problem is that while Nathan does have the blueprints to continue work on the ink machine, he most likely doesn't realise just how far his old friend Joey Drew went to obtain satisfactory results, namely via murdering employees and using their very souls to bring his cartoons to life. Nor does he likely understand that by skipping this important ingredient, inky, soulless abominations like Ink Bendy will be created. Remember, Joey hid this information from Nathan and the other investors, as we hear in this audio from chapter 5 of the original game.
Whatever that grinning thing was I saw wandering around your office, you better keep it locked up tight. I realize it was a first attempt, but imagine if the press caught sight of it.
So Nathan Arch had no idea of the monstrous side effects the ink machine could produce, and we have to wonder if he had this information, would he have continued to finance Joey's ambitions? Probably not. With Bendy being brought back to life, could he evolve and gain a more human appearance as seen in the merchandise for Dark Revival? Quite possibly. And what's more, could he gain a voice? A voice we hear in this audio log from Boris and the Dark Survival.
The time draws near for a dark revival to come at last.
Joey did everything he could to destroy Bendy. Realizing he had created an evil he could no longer contain, he enlisted an old friend by the name of Henry to travel inside the cartoon world and put a stop to the corruption within, over and over and over, making sure it would never escape. But now Nathan continues Joey's legacy from the privacy of his own studio, Archgate Films, and with this work, a new, even more cruel Bendy is created. A dark revival, which leads to Alison Pendle, a current actress at Archgate Films, to be reborn as her character Alice, explaining why she too appears once again in this world. It seems Nathan Arch could be the new Joey Drew, and this book sets in place the lead-up of events that will indeed kick off this dark revival. A chilling realization.
Mr. Joey Drew, the secrets you've left behind. How very interesting.
Of course, we can also raise the possibility that the raspy voice on this recording belongs to Nathan Arch himself, giddy at the wealth of diabolical information he discovers in the Bendy archives. Both theories for now do have their merit, but neither enough real evidence to take them any further. So, what do you think? Well, let me know in the comments section below, and do remember to leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and of course subscribe for more horror related content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.